This story is titled, "My Cheating Wife Called Me Weak Man, Mocked Me, and Cheated. Now She Regrets and Begging to Come Back." Hey everyone, before we jump into today's video, please like this video and subscribe Positive Voices. Let's begin. The courtroom was frigid, the kind of chill that crept under your skin and settled in your bones. Gabriel Valdez sat at the defendant's table. His hands clasped tightly together, every knuckle white. Across the room sat Natalia, her once familiar face an unfamiliar mask of composure. She wore a sharp, tailored black dress that exuded confidence, but Gabriel could see the cracks. Her lips pursed a little too tightly, her fingers tapping a nervous rhythm on the table. Ms. Valdez has sacrificed so much for this marriage. Natalia's lawyer, Damon Whitaker, was saying, his voice smooth as polished glass. She supported Mr. Valdez emotionally and socially while he pursued hobbies that added little value to the family. Gabriel flinched. Hobbies, he thought bitterly. As if the hours he spent baking had been an escape from responsibility, not the one thread holding him together while Natalia systematically unraveled their marriage. He glanced at his lawyer, Victor Morales, who gave a subtle nod. Patience, Victor's expression seemed to say. Whitaker leaned into his performance, gesturing dramatically toward Natalia. "My client deserves spousal support, the house, and a fair division of assets to maintain the lifestyle she's been accustomed to. A lifestyle she built through her sacrifices and dedication." Gabriel bit the inside of his cheek until he tasted blood. Sacrifices? Dedication. Was it a sacrifice when she mocked him in front of their friends? Was it dedication when she spent their savings on designer handbags while he budgeted every dollar to save for their daughter Sophia's future? He wanted to stand, to yell the truth, but Victor placed a calming hand on his arm. When Whitaker finally finished, Victor rose, smooth and confident. He adjusted his cufflinks before addressing the judge. "Your Honor, my client has been painted as a man who contributed little to his marriage, a narrative that couldn't be further from the truth. Mr. Valdez worked tirelessly to support his family, financially and emotionally, despite enduring years of criticism and emotional neglect from Ms. Valdez. The evidence we presented will show that Ms. Valdez was not the selfless partner she claims to be. In fact, she was engaging in an extramarital affair while my client was dedicating himself to this marriage." A ripple of whispers spread through the courtroom. Natalia's face hardened, her nails digging into the wood of the table. Victor pressed on, his voice steady. "The truth is Ms. Valdez used marital funds to finance a lifestyle that excluded her husband. Designer clothes, extravagant dinners, trips. While Mr. Valdez drove an old car and focused on supporting their daughter's future." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "This is not a case of a neglected wife seeking fairness. This is a case of exploitation." Gabriel kept his gaze fixed on the judge, but he could feel Natalia's glare burning into him. He wondered if she was finally realizing that her lies wouldn't hold up on her scrutiny. The judge leaned forward, her expression unreadable. "Ms. Valdez, do you have anything to add?" Natalia stood, her movements sharp and deliberate. Her voice was cool, but laced with anger. "Yes, Your Honor, I admit I made mistakes, but only because I was married to a man who was content with mediocrity. Gabriel was predictable, uninspiring. I wanted excitement, passion, a life that felt alive." Her voice cracked on the last word, and for a moment, her composure faltered. Victor leaned toward Gabriel and whispered, "Let her bury herself." The courtroom fell silent. Then, from the back, a clear, steady voice cut through the tension. "Excuse me, Your Honor." All heads turned toward Sophia Valdez. Gabriel's 18-year-old daughter stood, her chin high and her dark eyes fierce. "My dad is a mediocre," Sophia said, her voice trembling but determined. "He's the most dependable, loving person I know. My mom spent years tearing him down while he held our family together. He doesn't deserve to be blamed for her choices." Natalia's face turned ashen. For the first time, Gabriel saw genuine fear in her eyes. "Thank you, Ms. Valdez," the judge said. Her tone measured. She turned back to Gabriel and Victor. "We'll reconvene after a short recess to review the evidence." As the judge exited, Gabriel turned to Sophia, his throat tight with emotion. She approached him, her expression softening. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. Yes, I did. She replied, her voice firm. Someone had to tell the truth. In that moment, Gabriel felt a surge of strength he hadn't felt in years. The tide was finally turning. The first time Gabriel Valdez realized his marriage might be crumbling. It wasn't during an argument or one of Natalia's sharp criticisms. It was during a quiet moment on a Sunday morning, the kind of moment that should have been filled with warmth and connection. Gabriel stood at the kitchen counter, humming softly as he whisked eggs for breakfast. The scent of fresh coffee filled the air, mingling with the faint sound of birdsong through the open window. He glanced over his shoulder to where Natalia sat at the dining table, her face illuminated by the blue light of her phone screen. You want toast or pancakes? He asked, keeping his tone light. She didn't look up. Toast is fine. Gabriel paused, watching her fingers fly across the screen. Work email, he ventured. Natalia let out a small, exasperated sigh. No, just catching up with Sheila. Sheila, it was always Sheila these days. Or at least, that's when Natalia claimed. Gabriel turned back to the stove, his grip tightening on the spatula. Once, Sunday mornings had been their time. A ritual of lazy conversations over breakfast, sharing plans for the week ahead. Now, Natalia seemed more engaged with her phone than with him. He plated the eggs and toast, setting them down in front of her. Here you go. Thanks. She murmured, barely glancing at the plate. Gabriel sat across from her, forcing a smile. Sophia's got her debate tournament coming up next weekend. She's excited about it. Maybe we could. Can we not talk about that right now? Natalia interrupted, her eyes still glued to her screen. I've got a lot on my mind. Gabriel felt the familiar sting of rejection, but he swallowed it down. Of course, he said softly, picking up his fork. That evening, Gabriel found himself alone in the living room. Natalia had gone out with her friends again. She mentioned it in passing as she applied her makeup in the bathroom mirror. Her tone so casual it was as if she expected him not to care. Don't wait up, she had said, a faint smirk playing on her lips. Now, the house was silent except for the low hum of the TV. Gabriel glanced at the framed photos on the mantel. In one, he and Natalia stood arm in arm on their wedding day, both beaming with joy. In another, a younger Sophia perched on his shoulders, her laughter frozen in time. He picked up the wedding photo, studying Natalia's radiant smile. It was hard to reconcile that version of her with the woman she had become, aloof, dismissive, distant. Gabriel set the photo back down with a heavy sigh. His phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was a text from Javier's best friend. Javier, are you doing okay? How about seeing you at the gym in a while? Gabriel, I'm fine. Just busy with stuff at home. Javier, Natalia giving you trouble again? Gabriel, you could say that. Javier didn't respond right away, but Gabriel didn't mind. He appreciated the effort, even if he wasn't ready to share the full extent of what he was going through. The following week brought another dinner party, a small gathering in Natalia's friend Sheila's house. Gabriel didn't want to go, but Natalia insisted. It's important for us to maintain appearances. She had said, her tone clipped. From the moment they arrived, Gabriel felt like an outsider. Natalia slipped seamlessly into the group, her laughter ringing out as she recounted stories that often painted Gabriel as the punchline. Gabriel tried to fix the sink last week, she said, smirking. Long story short, we ended up calling a plumber anyway. DIY isn't exactly his strong suit. The room erupted in laughter, but Gabriel forced a smile, his jaw tightening. Well, he said, keeping his tone light. At least I tried. Can't say that for everyone. The chuckles faded and Natalia shot him a glare that could have cut glass. He knew he'd pay for that later. As they drove home that night, the tension in the car was palpable. Gabriel gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles turning white. Do you even realize how often you put me down? He asked, his voice calm but firm. Natalia rolled her eyes. Oh, here we go again. You're so sensitive, Gabriel. It's just jokes. Lighten up, jokes. Gabriel repeated, his voice rising slightly. How is it a joke to humiliate me in front of your friends? To make me feel like I'm not enough. Maybe you're not. Natalia snapped, her words slicing through the air like a knife. Gabriel pulled the car over to the side of the road, turning to face her. If that's how you feel, Natalia, why are we even doing this? Why are we pretending to be a team when you clearly don't respect me? Natalia stared out the window, refusing to answer. The silence was deafening. That night, as Gabriel lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he felt a weight settle on his chest. The cracks in their marriage were widening, and he didn't know how much longer he could hold everything together. In the dark, a single thought crept into his mind, unbidden and unwelcome. What if this is the beginning of the end? The first real proof of Natalia's betrayal came on a Thursday afternoon. Gabriel was leaving work early. An unusual luxury he decided to indulge in after an exhausting week. He planned to surprise Natalia with her favorite pastries from the little bakery downtown. The same bakery where they used to go on lazy Saturday mornings before everything fell apart. As he walked to his car, his phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from his best friend, Javier. Javier, hey man, this is awkward, but I think you should see this. Attached were 2 photos. Gabriel opened them, his breath catching in his throat. The first showed Natalia sitting in a cozy corner booth at a cafe, her face alight with laughter. Opposite her sat a man. Gabriel didn't recognize his hand resting casually on hers. The second photo hit harder. The man was leaning across the table, and Natalia was meeting him halfway in a kiss that left no room for misinterpretation. Gabriel stood frozen in the parking lot, the world spinning around him. For a moment, he wanted to believe there was some explanation. Some reason this wasn't what it looked like, but deep down he knew. The gut feeling he'd been ignoring for months was finally validated. His fingers hovered over the screen as he typed a response to Javier. Gabriel, who is he? Javier, don't know. I saw them yesterday at the cafe near 6th Street. Gabriel, thanks for telling me, Javier. I'm sorry man. Let me know if you need anything. Gabriel pocketed his phone, his mind racing. By the time he got home, his surprise pastry plan was long forgotten. That evening, Natalia walked in, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor as she carried shopping bags from an upscale boutique. She barely glanced at Gabriel. Busy day, he asked, keeping his tone neutral. Just errands, Natalia replied, heading toward the bedroom. Where'd you go? He pressed. The mall, she said without hesitation, her voice breezy. Gabriel felt his stomach churn, lying to his face. She didn't even flinch. Later that night, as Natalia slept soundly beside him, Gabriel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He thought about the photos, about her lies, and about the distant cold woman she'd become. He thought about the years he had spent trying to make things work, only to be treated like an afterthought. By the time the first light of dawn filtered through the curtains, Gabriel had made up his mind. He needed proof, undeniable, irrefutable evidence of what Natalia was doing. He wasn't just going to confront her. He was going to prepare for the storm that would follow. The next day, Gabriel hired a private investigator, Carlos Reyes. Carlos was discreet and efficient, with a reputation for getting results. Gabriel handed him the photos Javier had sent, and told him everything he suspected. I need the full picture, Gabriel said, his voice steady despite the turmoil churning inside him. I need to know how long this has been going on and how far it's gone. Carlos nodded. I'll take care of it. Give me a couple of weeks. In the meantime, Gabriel began paying closer attention to Natalia's behavior. He noticed the small things he had previously dismissed. The way she smiled at her phone, the text she quickly hid when he walked into the room, the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne on her clothes. One evening, when Natalia was out with her friends, Gabriel found himself in their bedroom, standing before a nightstand. He hesitated for a moment before opening the drawer. Inside, beneath a pile of receipts and unused coupons, was a phone he didn't recognize. His heart pounded as he picked it up. The lock screen demanded a passcode, but Gabriel knew Natalia well. He tried their wedding anniversary, his first instinct, and the phone unlocked. What he found inside confirmed everything he feared. Messages filled the screen, all from Rafael Moreno. Gabriel read the text, each one more damning than the last. Raphael, last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. Natalia, me too. Gabriel is as clueless as ever. Same time next week, Gabriel's grip tightened on the phone. It wasn't just the affair. It was the way she spoke about him, dismissing him as if he were nothing. The hurt twisted into something else, something sharper. He placed the phone back exactly as he'd found it and closed the drawer. As he walked out of the bedroom, his mind was already racing with plans. Natalia thought she was in control, but Gabriel knew better now. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was war. Gabriel waited until the perfect moment. Sophia was staying over at a friend's house for the night, and Natalia had just returned from one of her errands. She walked into the house, her heels clicking against the floor, carrying an expensive shopping bag. "Hey," she said casually, barely glancing in his direction. "Did you eat yet? I'm starving." Gabriel sat in the living room, calm and collected, her secret phone resting in his hand. His grip was steady, his heart a raging storm beneath the surface. "I haven't cooked tonight," he said evenly. "But I did find something else that might interest you." Natalia stopped mid-step, her eyes flicking to the phone. For the first time in months, Gabriel saw something crack through a carefully curated facade. Panic. "What's that?" she asked, her voice tight. "Oh, you don't recognize it?" Gabriel said, holding the phone up. "Strange. It's filled with messages between you and Raphael. You know, the man you've been sneaking around with while I've been clueless as ever." The blood drained from Natalia's face, and she stumbled to find a response. "Gabriel, I can explain." "Explain?" Gabriel interrupted, his voice sharp. "Explain what, Natalia? That you've been lying to me? Cheating on me? Mocking me behind my back? Go on. I'd love to hear this explanation." Natalia set the shopping bag down and crossed her arms, her expression hardening. "Fine. Yes, I've been seeing someone else. And honestly, can you blame me?" Gabriel froze, her audacity stunning him into silence. "You've been coasting through this marriage for years, Gabriel." Natalia continued, her tone laced with disdain. "No ambition, no excitement, just the same boring routine every day. I needed more. Raphael made me feel alive in a way you never could." Gabriel stood slowly, towering over her, his voice low and controlled. "So let me get this straight. You've been tearing me down for years, calling me boring and predictable while you ran around behind my back. And you think that's my fault?" Natalia met his gaze, her confidence faltering for just a moment. "You're not blameless in this, Gabriel. If you've been the kind of man I needed, don't you dare." Gabriel snapped, his voice rising. "Don't you dare put this on me. I've been here day in and day out, supporting you, building a life for us while you threw it all away for some fantasy. You want excitement. You want someone like Raphael? Then take him. But let me tell you something, you won't like the price." "What's that supposed to mean?" Natalia demanded, her bravado faltering. Gabriel stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers. "It means I'm done, Natalia, done playing the fool, done letting you walk all over me. I've already spoken to a lawyer. The divorce papers are ready, and trust me, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you are and what you've done." Natalia's eyes widened. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm dead serious," Gabriel said, his voice icy. "You want to freedom, Natalia? Congratulations. You're about to get it." That night, Gabriel stayed in the guest room, unable to sleep. His mind replayed the confrontation over and over, the anger and pain battling for dominance. But beneath it all was a strange sense of relief. For the first time in years, he felt like he had taken control. In the days that followed, Gabriel began to put his plan into action. He quietly removed his personal belongings from shared accounts, gathered all financial documents, and handed the evidence of Natalia's affair to his lawyer, Victor. "This is solid," Victor said, flipping through the photos and messages. "With this, we'll make sure she doesn't get a penny more than she deserves." Gabriel nodded, his jaw set. "I don't just want to win. I want her to know what it feels like to lose." The first phase of Gabriel's revenge began subtly. He didn't want an explosive showdown. He wanted Natalia's world to crumble piece by piece, just as she had dismantled their marriage. He started by informing a select few people about the divorce, ensuring the story was framed accurately. When he spoke to Sheila, Natalia's closest friend, he kept his tone measured but firm. "Sheila," he said during a chance meeting at the grocery store, "I thought you should hear from me. Natalia and I are divorcing." Sheila's eyes widened in shock. "Oh my God, Gabriel, what happened?" "She's been seeing someone else," Gabriel said, his voice steady. "I found out a few weeks ago. I wanted to work through it, but she's made it clear she's not interested in fixing things." The weight of his words hung in the air. Gabriel could see the gears turning in Sheila's mind. She would try to act neutral, but he knew Natalia's betrayal wouldn't sit well with her circle of judgmental, image-conscious friends. Meanwhile, Gabriel worked with his lawyer, Victor, to make the divorce proceedings as airtight as possible. Natalia would get her fair share, but nothing more. Gabriel ensured that every asset, every receipt, and every transaction was meticulously documented. "She's going to push for more," Victor warned. "She can push all she wants," Gabriel replied. "She's not getting it." Phase 2 of Gabriel's plan came with an opportunity he hadn't expected. The private investigator, Carlos, uncovered something significant. Rafael Moreno was not the charming, stable man Natalia thought he was. He had a history of financial scams and a penchant for latching onto wealthy women. Gabriel decided to use this information to his advantage. Through a carefully orchestrated series of conversations and anonymous tips, he ensured Natalia discovered Rafael's true nature. One evening, Natalia stormed into the house. Her face flushed with anger. "Did you know about Rafael?" she demanded, slamming her purse on the counter. Gabriel looked up from his book, feinting confusion. "Know what? That he's a fraud. He's been using me, Gabriel." Her voice cracked with a mixture of fury and desperation. Gabriel raised an eyebrow, his expression neutral. "Sounds like you found out the hard way. You think this is funny?" Natalia snapped. "No," Gabriel said, his tone cold. "I think it's karma." Natalia stared at him, her composure unraveling. For the first time, Gabriel saw genuine fear in her eyes. The fear of losing everything she had tried to manipulate and control. Phase 3 came with the public unraveling of Natalia's reputation. Gabriel leaked select pieces of evidence to mutual acquaintances. Nothing inflammatory, just enough to let the truth seep into their social circle. Natalia's friends, once quick to laugh at Gabriel's expense, began to distance themselves from her. At a charity event that Natalia attended without Gabriel, whispers followed her wherever she went. People stared, their polite smiles hiding judgmental eyes. Natalia's attempts to reclaim control of the narrative were met with cold indifference. Gabriel, meanwhile, flourished in his new independence. He threw himself into his baking, perfecting recipes and experimenting with new flavors. He started sharing his creations on social media, and the positive feedback was a balm for his wounded pride. Sophia remained a constant source of support, her bond with Gabriel growing stronger as they navigated the fallout together. "Mom's been calling me a lot," Sophia admitted one evening over dinner. "She's different. Sad. I don't know what to say to her." "Say what you feel," Gabriel said gently. "But don't let her guilt you in thinking this is your burden. It's hers." Sophia nodded, her eyes filled with a quiet determination. One day, Natalia showed up at Gabriel's new modest house. She looked tired, her usual polished appearance giving way to something raw and unkempt. "Gabriel," she began, her voice trembling. "I know I've made mistakes. I just don't know what to do anymore." Gabriel crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe. "You figure it out, Natalia. Just like I had to, please," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "Can we at least talk?" For Sophia's sake, Gabriel's gaze hardened. "For Sophia's sake, I'll always be there. But for us, there is no us, Natalia. Not anymore." She stood there for a moment, her shoulders slumping in defeat. Gabriel shut the door gently, his heart surprisingly calm. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't even sad. He was free. Natalia's world unraveled completely in the months following Gabriel's refusal to reconcile. Raphael had abandoned her, leaving behind not only emotional wreckage, but financial debts Natalia had unwittingly shouldered. Her once thriving social circle shrank to a few polite acquaintances who tolerated her, but whispered about her behind her back. Gabriel heard bits and pieces through mutual friends and Sophia, but he didn't dwell on her misfortunes. His focus was on rebuilding his life and ensuring Sophia's transition to college was as smooth as possible. One evening, while organizing his modest kitchen, Gabriel received an unexpected call from Sheila. "Gabriel, I wasn't sure if I should say anything." Sheila began hesitantly, "But Natalia's not doing well. She's been drinking a lot, and she asked about you." Gabriel exhaled, gripping the counter for support. "I hope she finds her way, Sheila. But that's not my responsibility anymore." "You're right," Sheila agreed, her voice soft. "I just thought you should know." Gabriel thanked her and hung up. For a moment, he felt a pang of guilt. But he reminded himself of the years of disrespect and betrayal. Natalia's choices had brought her here, not his. Gabriel's life flourished in ways he hadn't imagined. His baking business, now called Valdez's Creations, gained traction with locals praising his innovative recipes. Social media became his unlikely ally, and his small kitchen became a haven for creativity and community. Sophia often visited on weekends, helping him with orders and sharing updates from her college life. "Dad, you've got a gift," she said one evening as they boxed up pastries. "You've always had it. It's just that Mom didn't see it." Gabriel smiled. "Maybe it's because I didn't see it in myself back then. But I do now." Sophia hugged him tightly. "I'm proud of you." Months later, Gabriel met Elena Vargas, a kind, down-to-earth woman who ran a small art supply store in town. Their first meeting was unassuming. Gabriel had stopped by to pick up sketching pencils, a hobby he'd recently revisited. "You bake and you sketch," Elena teased, her warm smile lighting up her face. "Is there anything you don't do?" Gabriel chuckled, feeling a spark he hadn't felt in years. "I'm terrible at plumbing." Trust me, their connection was effortless, built on mutual respect and shared passions. Elena appreciated Gabriel's quiet strength and the kindness he extended to everyone around him. Gabriel, in turn, found an Elena partner who encouraged him to dream bigger and embrace life fully. One day, Natalia showed up at Gabriel's bakery. She looked older, worn down by life in a way that was hard to ignore. Gabriel noticed her hesitation as she entered, clutching her purse tightly. "Gabriel," she said softly, her voice lacking the sharpness it once carried. "Can we talk?" Gabriel set down the tray he was carrying and crossed his arms. "What is it, Natalia?" "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything," she said, her eyes welling up with tears. "I know I hurt you. I hurt us, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." Gabriel studied her, feeling a mix of pity and detachment. "I appreciate the apology," he said finally. "But that chapter is closed, Natalia. I've moved on, and you should too." Natalia nodded, her tears spilling over. "I just wanted you to know." As she left, Gabriel felt no satisfaction, only a sense of finality. Her apology wasn't for him. It was for herself. And that was fine. He didn't need her validation anymore. Gabriel's life came full circle. He had found joy in his passions, love and Elena, and peace within himself. Sophia thrived in college, her bond with Gabriel unshakable. One evening, as Gabriel and Elena sat on the back porch of his home, sipping wine and watching the stars, he felt a sense of completeness. "You've come a long way," Elena said, resting her hand on his. Gabriel nodded as gaze fixed on the sky. "I've learned that life isn't about holding on to what hurts. It's about finding what heals." As the night settled around them, Gabriel realized he had finally found what he'd been searching for all along. Freedom, love, and the strength to never settle for less than he deserved.